Now, the situation in Gaza is dire. The Palestinian death toll from ongoing Israeli attacks has risen to nearly 46,000, with more than 100 others injured. Meanwhile, the Israeli military has threatened medical teams, patients, as well as staff at a hospital in northern Gaza that the facility will be bombed unless they evacuate immediately. As a result of these developments, the United Nations Security Council held an emergency meeting yesterday. The council discussed the collapse of health services on that strip. Now, to help us unpack this, I'm joined by Na'eem Jeenah, an analyst and researcher at Mapungubwe Institute. Mr. Jeenah, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this evening. Now, a deeply concerning issue in the enclave with the health system severely under strain. Only 16 of the 36 hospitals in Gaza are partially operational. Do you believe that the international community, especially the UN, has responded to this health crisis in Gaza with the urgency that it needs?
No, absolutely not. I mean, bombing hospitals is a war crime. Bombing hospitals in a systematic way in order to ensure that people are killed, that patients will not receive treatment, that people will suffer in the manner that is being done. This is an act of genocide. And this is what South Africa has been saying to the International Court of Justice from December last year. Yet, despite these kind of war crimes, I mean, we have not heard in any other conflict in, I don't know how long, since the notion of international law has been in place. We haven't heard of a conflict where hospitals are deliberately targeted, where there's a deliberate attempt to ensure that there is no health care available for victims, where the victims are civilians. And that is what is happening in Gaza today. And the world is largely silent. I mean, you have a debate at the United Nations, but debates at the United Nations mean nothing if there is no action taken thereafter. And certainly, thus far, the UN Security Council has taken no action against Israel for all of its war crimes, the destruction of health facilities, including UN health facilities, the bombing of schools, including UN schools, the prevention of aid from entering the territory, including trade aid provided by the United Nations, being distributed by the United Nations, etc. And it seems that as long as the United States continues supporting Israel, these war crimes will continue, and no one in the rest of the world will be able to do anything about it.
So maybe let's just speak on the outcomes of that UN Security Council's emergency meeting that took place yesterday. Do we know of any resolutions or actions that possibly stood out for you?
Not at the moment, no. No. Nothing that's going to make a difference.
Right. So, but do you think that there are any positions of key Security Council members within the Security Council that sort of influence these discussions and the potential resolutions regarding Gaza's health crisis?
Well, we have 5 members of the UN Security Council who have veto powers. And for decades, the United States has taken a position where it uses its veto in virtually all or most resolutions or statements that would be critical of Israel. And this continues to be the case even now, even with the kind of crimes that Israel is committing. So we've had occasions in the past few months where 14 out of the 15 UN Security Council members, and that includes countries such as the UK, Britain, France, etc., support a resolution and vote for a resolution, and the United States vetoes it. And that has been the biggest obstacle in terms of the United Nations Security Council being able to do anything to stop the genocide and the war crimes and crimes against humanity that are taking place in Gaza.
Let's just speak about the expectations from the Trump administration. I mean, President-elect Donald Trump has come out and said that if hostages held by Hamas are not home by the 20th of January 2025, which is the date of his inauguration, all hell will break loose. Do you think we can expect anything different from the Trump administration regarding its policy on Israel and Gaza? Do you foresee any significant shifts in their approach?
Well, a hardening of U.S. support, a strengthening of U.S. support for Israel. Trump has also said that he wants this matter, this war, as he calls it, ended before he moves into the White House on the 20th. So that is why the attempts at restarting and moving ahead with ceasefire talks have begun in earnest, so that that can be concluded before he doesn't want to inherit this, in a sense. Unfortunately, those ceasefire negotiations are being are not making progress because the Israeli Netanyahu government continues to put unrealistic expectations, continues to walk back commitments that they made about a year ago already. And so it's not making any progress. If Trump comes into the White House and the genocide is continuing, then we can expect that he will give even more support to Israel than the Biden administration has already given. On Gaza, number one. Number two, that the Israelis want to annex the West Bank to Israel and make it part of Israel. And indications are that Trump will support that. Essentially, Trump is going to move into the White House and give in to Israeli attempts to basically get rid of the Palestinian question completely. That won't happen, of course, because Palestinians will continue resisting, but that is the direction that Trump will likely move in.
So him not wanting to inherit this, won't that be a positive in him wanting the conflict to end and possibly then causing tensions between himself and the Israeli state?
One might expect so, except that the relationship between Trump and Netanyahu has been very good, continues to be very good. And if Netanyahu makes some kind of an argument about, using that statement that you said, the hostages or the captives have not been released yet, and so we can't have a ceasefire until we free all of them, is the kind of line Netanyahu will take. And based on that statement that Trump made, he will then likely go ahead with it, despite the fact that he wanted a ceasefire before he comes into office, and Netanyahu has upset any possibility of a ceasefire. He will go in that direction.
So in the midst of all of this, I mean, that conflict is ongoing. What do you think are the long-term implications for Gaza's health system if immediate international support is not provided? How critical is it to address these issues now?
Well, first, of course, it's not a conflict, it's a genocide. The International Court of Justice said it's plausible it's a genocide. South Africa argues convincingly in the ICJ that it is a genocide. So it's not a conflict. But in terms of the future of the health system, the future of Gaza as a territory that can support human beings existing on that territory is now in question. It's not about the health system. The health system is all but completely destroyed. But the possibility of food and water and all of that, and Gaza being able to support a human population, that now in itself is at question. And in a sense, what Israel has done is tried to ensure that even if it doesn't kill off the entire population now in its genocide, that it'll create the conditions that will force whatever is left of that population to leave that territory because they won't be able to live on it. So it's the destruction of the almost complete destruction of the health system, the destruction of the education system, the destruction of any kind of administrative system. Everything is being destroyed, but also the natural kind of conditions, the ecology of Gaza is being destroyed to ensure that it becomes a wasteland.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.